Let's go to Honorable Speaker of the House, Congressman Mike Johnson. Congressman Johnson, how you doing, sir?
Doing great, Moon. Great to hear your voice, my friend.
Well, it's good to hear you. I know you've been it's been hectic up there, but I'm glad you give us a few minutes. All right, so shutdown's over. Talk about what really happened for us while we had this. We always see and read stuff out of the news, and then what happens next, I guess.
Well, I tell you, the quick summary of a long saga is that the long national nightmare is finally over. It turned out to be the longest shutdown in the history of the United States government. And the Democrats did it for no reason at all, Moon. They didn't get a single darn thing out of it. We wound up passing at the end the bill that I passed out of the House back in mid-September. It just took them over 43 days to do it. Why did they do it? That's the big question. They tried to pretend that it was about healthcare costs. Then they tried to pretend it was about they wanted to add $1.5 trillion in new spending, which was their counterproposal. All of that was just gimmicks and sideshows, Moon. What it was about was politics, just raw politics. And here's the simplest summary I can give you. Chuck Schumer leads the Democrats in the Senate. Hakeem Jeffries leads the Democrats in the House. They're the minority parties in both chambers, and both of those guys are from the state of New York. They are terrified about the rise of Marxism in their state, as you see it now popping up around the country with these socialist Marxists like Mamdani, the newly elected mayor of New York. And Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are personally afraid that they're going to get a challenge from a Mamdani Marxist disciple in their next reelects. So they had to show a fight, quote unquote, against Trump for any purpose. So what they did was they decided, this is the summary in one line, they were more afraid of the backlash from the far left activists who now run the Democrat Party than they were afraid of millions of Americans going without food when SNAP got suspended. There are troops getting paid, people getting their flights canceled and their lives disrupted. They cared more about their personal political interest than the people. And I think that's telling, and I think it's going to be a long time before they forget that.
Well, that's the next question. You think the people, American people, will see through them and say, okay, we're getting ready to really torture y'all, because that's what needs to happen. They need to be tortured at the polls, because that's the only way people have people can get back at them.
Well, that's right. And I think that they finally realized that was indeed going to happen, that they had pushed it too far. And that's why they folded. They didn't get a darn thing for their political stunt except a bunch of backlash. And now you see, ironically, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are both facing challenges to their leadership positions in their respective chambers because people are so frustrated by how the whole thing was bungled. So, there are long-term consequences to this, but in the short term, real people were made to suffer real pain, and it was disgusting to us that these people were willing to do that over just a simple, clean CR to continue the funding of the government so we can finish all of our appropriations work and everything else on the plate.
Okay. Speaker of the House, Congressman Mike Johnson. So you got this thing to the end of January. What makes you think it won't happen again? Will you get all your appropriation bills through between now and the end of January? Tell me the future of this thing. Or we're going to go through this again in January?
No, we won't. And here's the great news. Okay, so when the president signed the bill to reopen the government on Wednesday night, last Wednesday, I was standing next to him. We finally got it done triumphantly. We gave nothing to the Democrats. We did exactly what we said we were going to do in the beginning. But included in that, the only thing that was included in the continuing resolution was 3 appropriations bills. So we got the military construction VA bill, we got the legislative branch, we got the agriculture bill signed into law. That is a huge achievement. Now, it sounds almost silly for us to say that that's a big thing because you're supposed to pass 12 appropriations bills every year. But you and I both know, we've talked about many times on the program, instead of doing it that way, what Congress has done for like the last 2 decades is they wait till right before the eve of Christmas and they pass a massive omnibus spending bill with all kinds of junk in it that nobody even knows or is debated. Mm-hmm. It's crafted by 4 leaders in a back room, and it's hoisted upon the American people. Since I became Speaker 2 years ago, I have been fighting like a warrior to stop that madness, and we did it. And we broke that fever. So we got 3 of the 12 appropriations bills signed into law last Wednesday night. Now we got 9 left. So we're working. It's like pushing a boulder uphill, man. I'm trying to get the Senate and the House to do their dang work and get these bills finished. I'm very optimistic we can get most of them done before the new deadline of January 30th. And whatever's left on the table, it'll be minor things, I think, and hope. Then if we have to do a CR for the rest of that for the year, we just will. But you're not going to have troop pay hanging in the balance and, TSA agents and air traffic controllers and SNAP benefits and all that. It'll all be taken care of. So that's going to be a really important thing.
Yeah, the one thing you brought up about CR, so I'm taking it when we get to the end of January, we're going to do another CR that gets everybody through the election year.
Well, but I'm hopeful, like I said, I'm hopeful we can get all 12 approach bills done and there's nothing to have a resolution on. If we can get this process to work again, it makes us better stewards of the taxpayers' dollars and it's more responsible. It's the way it's designed to work. It's just, politicians in Washington they don't want to take tough votes and they get lazy and they'd rather do it all in one big lump sum, but there's no accountability for that. So that's why we're trying to force this back to the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, it's, I know that it sounds like there's a lot of time, but really it's about 2.5 months till we get to that time. So y'all got a lot to do to get through the process. Mike, a lot of people have asked me, and they asked me to ask you, all this stuff about the Epstein files and all that. Are y'all taking a vote on this? I saw President Trump came out and said we ought to vote on it. We ought to get out what we need to get out. Where are we at with this? And a lot of people care about this. So where are we on this?
Well, I care as much as anyone, and I've talked to the president about this a lot, as you can imagine. And he and I discussed this personally a few days ago. I said, Mr. President, the reason that you and I have been opposed to this discharge petition, okay, this is the Democrats teaming up with 4 Republicans who want to stick their thumb in President Trump's eye, okay? So they teamed up and they did a discharge. A discharge is to go around the speaker and force something to the floor. The reason we objected to that method of the release of the files is because it's terribly dangerous. They wrote it in a haphazard manner. They don't adequately protect the victims of these crimes. Their names can be uncovered and all that kind of stuff. It's got all kinds of flaws. I could give you 30 minutes of all the problems with it. But here's the thing. It's also totally unnecessary because the House Oversight Committee has been working for months to dig in, compile the files, and release them instantaneously to the public. So there's over 50,000 pages of Epstein files now out on the Internet. Anybody can Google it right now and read them themselves, including his personal logs, his travel logs, his daily calendar, his financial ledgers, all that stuff. So this little political gambit they're playing is unnecessary. But the president came out last night and he said, I have nothing to hide. I never have. Just rip the Band-Aid off and do it. And we'll fix that discharge petition in the Senate. So that's what we're going to do in the House. We're going to explain why we have been opposed to this method, but we're also going to say we are for maximum transparency. We always have been. And more than talking about it, we've been doing it.
I noticed there was another cartoon in the days, Devil's Advocate, as I call it. And, of course, they always popping Trump with Epstein. And I'm he's had enough of it. I know he has. If there's something out there, they would have brought this out when Trump ran for president last time. So that's why I'm asking if anything else will come out of this, and if it does, is this a 3-month, 6-month, 2-year deal, or do you have any clue where that goes?
Well, the vote will be Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. I'm putting it on the floor as soon as we can process it. We'll pass it, send it over to the Senate, and hopefully they can improve upon this discharge petition with all of its flaws. I'm not allowed to amend it in the House because the authors have the ability to block that. So we're going to work on that. But meanwhile, all of the files are going to be in a continual process of being released. There are subpoenas being complied with even as we speak. So the more they gather that info, the sooner they put it out. And you have Republicans and Democrats on the Oversight Committee, some of the biggest names in Congress working on that, literally around the clock. So nothing will be hidden, and it shouldn't be hidden. The only thing we're concerned about, the president and I and others who are conscientious about this, is we want to make sure that victims of crimes do not have their identities exposed because they would suffer more harm. And innocent people whose names might be in, Jeffrey Epstein, they live down the street in Palm Beach from him, and he's got their name on a list somewhere. Innocent people who have nothing to do with him. We don't want their lives destroyed because they get swept up into this thing, and that's what we've been concerned about.
Yeah, it's all right. So last thing, and I know you got to go, is basically the agenda until January is all about the budget. What about the agenda for next year? I know it's an election year.
Yes, it is, and we've got so much to do. Look, we've had the most productive Congress and new administration, I think, arguably in the history of the Congress, certainly in the modern era. The first 10 months, think of it, sealed the border, fixing the crime crisis, reduced taxes, reduced regulations, largest tax cut in U.S. history, by the way, no tax on tips, overtime, reduced taxes on seniors, all those things. The president's solving 8 wars around the globe. American energy dominance, all these things happening. But we got to work on that cost of living. The affordability is the new word of the day, right? We have been working on it. When we passed our big, beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut that you and I talked about, most of those provisions really take effect in January. So you heard the Treasury Secretary over the weekend, Scott Besson, out talking on the interview saying people will feel the positive effects of this in the first and second quarter of the year, well in time for that election that comes up for the midterm in November. And we planned all that, and we knew it would happen. But we got a lot more to do. We got to bring down the cost of health care. So the end of the year is finished appropriations, National Defense Authorization Act, other must-pass legislation, and then the first part of next year, we'll be working every day to bring down the cost of health care and the cost of groceries, and we have the plans to do that. The Democrats are the ones that put us in this mess. With all their spending like drunken sailors, we're getting out of it. It just takes a little time to do it.
Well, that was basically what I wanted to ask you. The last thing is that I know you really have to go, but the debt, running up the debt, still about $2 trillion over per year. I just got a feeling that's the big culprit of inflation. Just the printing of money and selling that debt, and that's the one that concerns me. Anyway.
That's right, and that's why. Look, I'm laser focused on it. We saved $1.6 trillion in the big beautiful bill. The appropriations that we just signed into law are lower spending than the previous year. That's the first time that's happened in memory. We're going to continue that pace. Rescissions of fraud, waste, and abuse spending. All those things will continue under President Trump and the Republicans. We're the ones that are going to get this thing back on track. It just takes us a while to turn this aircraft carrier while it's at full speed.
All right, it's an honor. Speaking of House, the United States of America, Congressman Mike Johnson, our very own. Mike, always a pleasure. God bless, and best of luck to you.
You too, brother. Thanks so much.
All right,
take care.
Yes, sir. All right, I take a break. More to come. Moon Griffon Show. Don't go nowhere, folks. Laura Rodriguez at the bottom of the hour.